And we are live!
Yeah,
Greetings and salutations. I always feel like I should be in like a firework costume after all of that banging.
I
But
know it's
it's
epic.
quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, great.
Well, we
So
are
good.
here. Since it's June, we are queer, some of us are anyway, and we are here to talk to you about writing characters with autism. This is part of a series that we started with Writing Characters with One Eye, where we dig into different kinds of characters that people may not know how to approach, that people may be tentative to approach. And we dig in and we talk about secret superpowers, what people get wrong, and how you can avoid getting it wrong, and all of these great things. I'm very, very excited to welcome Jonathan. Jonathan, how are you doing?
Great, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
Where are you calling in from today?
Little nervous. Anaheim, California. We live a mile away from Disneyland.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
that
it's
must
pretty
be
cool. It's pretty cool. You
amazing.
can see the Disneyland fireworks through our windows over here.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, so the trailer fireworks must be
It's very
nothing.
cool.
Like you see them all the time.
Yeah, I see them all the time. It's like cool fireworks. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
So, Jonathan Fesmire is a happy author of speculative fiction. While he loves a variety of genres, including high fantasy, hard sci fi, and superheroes, the niche steampunk western genre, and spoiler alert, steampunk western zombie genre, has
There
a
are
strong
robots
grip.
too.
Sorry, what was that?
No, there are robots too.
Promises, promises.
Yeah.
Has a strong grip on his imagination, hence the Creedverse was born. As an author, one of his goals is to write and publish at least one novel per year, and with Bodacious Creed and the San Francisco Syndicate, he's come close. A single father, Jonathan lives in California, close to Disneyland, as we have learned, with his son. They enjoy going to the movies, to Disneyland whenever possible, and they play guitar together most evenings. Now, Jonathan, one of the reasons that I so wanted to have you here today is because not only are you a great author and an Anvilite, by the way, not only are you a great autistic author, but your son is autistic as well. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
And so this, I thought this was a wonderful opportunity to dig into these experiences from somebody who is is familiar with both sides of the topic, essentially.
Yep.
So before we get ahead of ourselves, folks, you can ask questions in the chat, and please do. We'll be answering all of your questions in about half an hour or so, depending on how many there are. And Jonathan
Great. Uh-huh.
has very kindly offered one of his books. Jonathan, tell us about the book that we are raffling off today.
So we're raffling off the first book in my trilogy, The Adventures of Bodacious Creed. The first book it says what it is right on the title. It's called Bodacious Creed, a steampunk zombie western. There we go. Um, it's it's a good length. It's about 120,000 words.
Nice.
It's hmm, it's about a uh U.S. It takes place in the old West, but in a alternate world with steampunk technology, and it's about a U.S. Marshal who's kind of pretty renowned and has brought in a lot of criminals and stuff, and his name's James Creed, and he gets early in the book he gets killed by the criminal he's after, and then so I don't want to give much away. It's kind of on the back cover anyway, but
Well, we know he's the main character. I'm guessing that doesn't
and he
slow him
gets
down too much.
no, he gets resurrected with steam era technology, so he's a sort of zombie. So you kind of think
Amazing.
sort of in the line of Liv Moore from iZombie. Yeah, in the
Yeah.
sense that he's intelligent and everything, and he's basically it's like he's alive again more so than undead,
Mm.
sort of a Frankenstein kind of a thing, but he needs the tech that brought him back, because kind of like once you are fully dead and brought back with this technology, it has to remain a part of you or you just are going to die again.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, amazing. So, folks, we are giving away that book right now in the raffle, exclamation point raffle to take part. over on Twitch. Sorry, YouTubers, I cannot do the raffle on YouTube as well. There is no technology for me to do that. So let's jump into our topic, which is characters with autism. I wanted to start with something that might seem like a very basic question to some of you, but I think it's important. And that is, what is autism? Because I feel like autism is something that a lot of people misunderstand. So I have got a medical diagnosis of what autism is here, a medical description, because I feel like that's a good place to start. Autism, or autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by a broad range of unique behaviors and experiences across many different areas of functioning, including, but not limited to, socialization and communication, repetitive behaviors, sensory sensitivities, talents, passions, and executive functioning. How do you feel about that diagnosis, Jonathan? Do you feel like that comes close to describing it from an
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah, and especially kind of that it really is kind of a broad range of things.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember too, this might be the first thing that people should realize if they're going to write about an autistic character, is that it is a spectrum, and it's a spectrum, like in what aspects an individual has of the disorder, and what and to what degree.
Absolutely.
With the different things. Yeah. So they say, this is totally true, but there's a saying, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, there are things that are similar or can be similar between people who are autistic, but also everybody is very individual, is what you're saying.
Yeah. If you're like part of the geek community, which I'm sure a lot of people here are, and a lot of us have kind of social awkwardness, or just seem a little different. It seemed kind of geeky, which, but a lot of those people, that's because they're autistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of us in fandom, because, we kind of get our special interests, and that's a really, kind of a big one, and it's lots of fun, and so it attracts a lot of autistic people. So
amazing. So we've talked about what is autism. What are some classic misconceptions about autism that you come across in daily life?
The good thing is that I think that just the people I surround myself with, is most people I know are either I can talk about something related, actually. I'll do that too. Most people I know who whether they have it or not, are either already kind of very kind of understanding people that, in my circle, or they're open to learning more. One big one though, and I saw this like when I was working in the 90s for a tech company. There's a guy who just kind of would make kind of jokes about Rain Man.
Okay.
And it's like, the whole like idea that people who have autism are all like very, very stuck on one thing. That can kind of happen, but or are like, Rain Man, like not understanding what's going on out in the world, and but having these amazing abilities. There's some truth to that, but actually the guy who Rain Man was based on wasn't autistic.
Yeah.
They figured out later he had something else, I think probably after he was already gone, but yeah. So, that's not a good place to get your information on. That's a fine movie about that particular person who it was based on, but it's not accurate to most people, or maybe anybody with autism.
Well, as you say, the guy did not have autism.
Yeah, didn't have autism. Yeah.
So yeah. I think 101, don't base your portrayals of characters on Rain Man. That is incorrect.
Yeah, that's
like
incorrect.
you may as well base them on Princess Victoria or Queen Victoria, right? Like
Yeah.
it's as accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we were talking before, you mentioned that one of the classic misconceptions about autism is its cause.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I mean, you've got the contingent of people who think that it's because it's vaccines cause autism. They don't. I was afraid at one point. I mean, not like afraid. It's like you kind of go, well, it is what it is. We did what we had to do. But my son needed a surgery when he was 6 months old, and they had to put him under general anesthesia. So I kind of worried, did that, cause it? Did that cause some change in his brain? Because he was so young. But no, it doesn't work that way. You're born with it. And it's just developmental, but it develops very early.
Yeah, exactly. It's
and
what's called a neurodevelopmental condition. It's something
Yeah,
that you are born with. If you are autistic, you
you're
you
autistic.
were autistic. That's how you were built. That's how the
Yep.
DNA formed itself.
It's
That's
basically
it. That's you.
yeah. And another thing too, that I have my list of things I put together. Where is it? Where is it? It's that yeah, it's basically like that you have a different OS. You're running on a different OS.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people who represent autism need to understand is that it is not a tragedy.
Yeah.
And most of us autistic people do not want for there to be a cure. We're happy how we are, We just think and experience the world a little differently. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
As 101 Colonel says, they think there is a genetic predisposition. So
Yes, there definitely is.
That's something to bear in mind when you're creating autistic characters. If you are creating autistic characters, chances are they are also related to autistic characters. So if you're building families, bear that in mind as well, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that my uncle had it, and there can be and my dad definitely has it. And just when I was growing up, we thought, okay, that my dad would say just things that seem funny, or like not just perceive things differently and think of things differently, and we just thought, okay, that's dad, but yeah, he's autistic, and so my granddad probably was too, and I am, and so is my son.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
one of the things that you shared with me was that before autism was really sort of codified and discovered in the 40s, people with autism were often just considered eccentric.
Yeah, especially people who are I don't know how they treated people with autism who were nonverbal and things like that. Yeah, you can't change the past, but it's kind of one of those things that you would kind of worry about. Like, I wonder how they help. Did those people put in institutions? That's possible. It probably depends partly on their families.
Yeah.
And often actually there are ways that nonverbal autistic people can communicate. There are machines now where they can type out what they want to say. They can write it. They can write just fine and stuff. It's just but the people who had more what used to be called a few years ago, and it's now changed, used to be called Asperger's syndrome. They've folded that into autism because it really is just one big spectrum that they're now calling autism spectrum disorder. So, and that's kind of the manifestation I have. So those people, were often just considered eccentric, and Yeah. In fact, in my world on World Anvil, the Creed verse, which I don't know if Janet's going to put links and stuff, but um, it I have an article in there. It is a private article, but I made an article called "Ecentrism" for autism, and it because back then there was no name for it.
I love that so much. Interestingly, Delana in the chat says, is it offensive that I consider autism to be a superpower? I have at least one child and one grandchild on the spectrum, and I wouldn't change them. Well,
You
what I
shouldn't
want to
change them. That's awesome.
definitely shouldn't change them.
No, not at all. In fact, that's something we were going to talk about. I don't think that's. I did see somebody on TikTok talk about how she, in her opinion, it's definitely a disorder, which I mean, technically it is, but that she thought, I think she was kind of making fun of the superpower idea. Like, what's my superpower? Not being able to read people's faces or something like that. But it's like, no, there are definitely things that individuals with autism can do that most, that's different from a lot of neurotypical people, and that you could think of as superpowers, because they can be pretty amazing. And I'm not talking about like the Rain Man level, although there's probably some of that, but that's pretty rare. Like, throw a bunch of cards in the air and know what they all are. But like my son has the most incredible memory for dates and events and names, and he doesn't remember everything, but so often I can say, Clark, where is that place we went, and what day did we go? And he knows exactly the street and the address and what day we went there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing.
I just asked him; he knows. That's one of his.
That's really cool. So, I am not diagnosed with autism, but I have been diagnosed with dyslexia. And an example I like to use is that 84% of dyslexics have above average imaginative skills, which is awesome. There's a bunch of other perks of being dyslexic. I realize that is not the topic of today's discussion. That does not mean being dyslexic is a picnic. There are things I struggle with. I wrote P's and B's backwards and upside down until I was 12. And when I was a child, I had the reading age of a 20-year-old and the spelling age of a 6-year-old. So, yes, it would be blind to say that it's all fun and games and superpowers, but there are quirks of the way my brain works which give me benefits, like the imagination thing. Do you have examples of that that you've seen for autism, or that you've experienced with autism?
Let's see. With Clark, again, a lot of experience with my son. I'm a single dad, so it's basically me raising him with not a lot of outside help, aside from school and stuff. And, we see my parents and stuff occasionally, and his mom helps out mostly financially. But so he knew how to spell his name, knew the alphabet, things like that, earlier than other kids his age, and was reading at a fluent level when he was 4 or 5. Like, I could show him a passage from anything and he could read it, but he didn't understand most of it.
Yeah.
But he's called it's called being hyperlexic. So amazing. He could read anything. He just,
Yeah, he couldn't always process the meaning.
He couldn't really process the meaning. He still has a hard time processing the meaning of fiction and prose, but he reads graphic novels.
Oh, that's a great idea.
He is reading. He is getting stories. I get him. He reads lots of graphic novels. He really likes Batman. And others too, but he particularly likes Batman. He's reading a Loki one right now, I think.
Oh, fun. Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
how about, go ahead.
As for me, there's some really interesting things. I think a lot of people with autism are just really smart. But we also have one typical thing you see with autistic people is having a special interest or a few special interests. And my kind of main one is writing, and a lot of my geek interests kind of somehow revolve around that, writing and so and reading. And where was I going with this?
We were talking about secret
And
superpowers.
secret. So another thing that kind of I realized kind of a superpower I have that developed later is and partly with experience, but I can be very analytical. So sometimes I won't get what someone is getting at immediately while we're talking, or I'll feel or I'll feel like a situation is kind of off and something isn't quite right here, and none of the neurotypical people are seeing it. You know, like dysfunction in relationships that other people I see, I'm like, you guys aren't seeing what's going on here, and then like later on, I kind of figure out, oh, I think this is what's going on, and I kind of get it, and I actually might understand someone's hidden motives or things better than a neurotypical person would. I'm not getting it like necessarily in the moment, but later on, it like becomes really clear.
Yeah.
So
essentially, you don't necessarily get it instinctively, but you get it through analysis.
Yeah, I get it through, and there is an instinctual side to it. There's a feeling of something's different, something's not right.
Yeah.
And then through analysis, I figure out what's not right. So that has happened, and I've been correct. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Special interest was one of the ones that I have on my list as well. I've seen many autistic people say that their ability to dive into something just because they're really passionate about it has made them specialists, essentially. Yeah. Like just and they just get very, very some would use the word fixated. I like to use the word passionate about something, and they just want to read about it all the time. There is a very high level of autism among academics, and I think this is one of the reasons why, because you've got to be really passionate about a topic to devote your life to it to an academic level.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Another one I have, funnily enough, on my list, I did a little bit of research, is sensory sensitivities. So sensory sensitivities are often put on the bad list, on the naughty list, on the this causes me problems list. But because of sensitivities, it can make you really, really good at analyzing sounds, for example, if you're very sensitive to sound and this kind of thing.
I have a really good sense of smell, and this is probably pretty common, but I just think my sense of smell is I can smell things that it's like, man, I know I smell that. It's really, really, really faint.
Yeah.
But there's something funky out there, whatever it is,
but you can find it.
Sometimes it makes it hard for me to sleep.
Interesting. Yeah.
How like food can wake people up, the smell of food. I mean, I've got to have. I need the air to be like smelling clean to like really be able to sleep well.
Interesting.
My sense of hearing is still really, really good too. I'll just notice things. On the flip side of that, though, sometimes I can be, and Clark too has been sensitive to sounds and things too. On the flip side of that, though, is if you're really focused on something, you might just cut everything out.
Yes.
I was shown an example once when he was going into preschool. There was we were living in Santa Cruz, and there's an excellent I think it's preschool through second grade for kids, specifically for kids with autism. And he was there. So he would have been like 2 years old. And he was playing with something, and the one of the aides said, one of the things we see is that sometimes kids, like if kids are focused on something and you do like a loud noise, they will just ignore it, whereas a neurotypical kid would look.
Yeah.
And so she just claps really loud right behind him, just clap, clap. He's just doing his thing, and I'm like, wow, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's common in ADHD as well, is that kind
Yeah.
of hyper focus, or can be common in
Yes.
ADHD.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Or you get totally distracted.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Depending on the
Yeah.
situation and what you're trying to focus on and who you are and many other things.
So some of the characters in my books who are it's not if you I think if you really understood autism, you might go, I think that character might be autistic. But if you didn't, you might not. I'm actually trying to make it a little clearer and really show some of it in the latest book I'm writing, which is the first of a spin-off series. And it's about this character, Anna Boyd, who is a former sex worker, former prostitute, because that's what she had to do to survive. Who's actually like really brilliant, and she comes up with a way to tap into the luminiferous ether. And in my universe, it's sort of the Creed verse is sort of suffuses the universe. It's almost like on a sub level, you know. And if you can draw on it, depending on there are these metal alloys that draw on it, that she kind of figured out these formulas mathematically and then made it in a work. So different formulas will kind of bring in different effects from the ether. One is power. There's others, like there's a way to there are these devices that can turn people not invisible, but like surrounded in shadows. So at nighttime, they can be practically invisible using these. And that's a certain ether alloy that does that. But she's autistic. And her boyfriend is autistic. And Nikola Tesla's in my books too. So
I love that.
Pretty sure he was autistic. Yeah. So, yeah.
No.
In the new novel about Anna, because so the spinoff series is about her, and stuff she goes through, and I'm gonna try to show it a little more, mostly by showing how she masks and how she is this is something common with girls with autism.
I wanted to ask about this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put up the next question,
Yeah,
which is, does gender make a difference when portraying autistic characters?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a lot about secret superpowers, and these are great positive ways to showcase characters with autism or who are on the autistic spectrum. But I happen to know the answer is yes. How does gender make a difference when portraying autistic characters?
So girls especially, and this is one reason why they're harder to diagnose than boys, learn. I know among girls, being very social and being acting a certain way socially is often more important than it is with boys.
Yeah.
You know, and so girls with autism often learn to mask, and they look at, okay, my friend's face looks that way when she says this. I will make my face look that way when I say it. You know, and so they're actually they're studying it more than and so it's called masking, and so they're pretending to be that's how they naturally are. I have gotten much better at masking myself as an adult. Probably by the time I was in my early 30s, or late 20s, early 30s, I was, doing it more. I mean, I've always been able to read facial expressions. That hasn't been a problem for me, but I think there might be subtleties I miss,
Yeah.
And stuff. So kind of side thing, but so girls mask a lot. And one of the things I want to show with Anna is how she's masking and how she has learned to read people and learned how to behave and to get what she wants and stuff, which you kind of need to be she's a madam by the time this is the story. So, and she's in her early 20s. She's a really cool character, and she's not a Mary Sue. Anyways, I've been accused of that by someone who didn't actually read the book. And it's like,
that seems unfair.
It was not cool. I'm not going to say anything anymore about that because you're not supposed to do that. But yeah, so, but I'm trying to show in here how she has learned to read people and how she's thinking when people are acting a certain way, and how she's masking. So just to kind of show it a little more and kind of give a bit of that experience. So
I love that. You
yeah,
touched on this already, but how does age make a difference when portraying autistic characters?
I when I think it partly, like, kids are more likely to have meltdowns,
Mm.
and teens too. I think meltdowns are probably less likely as you get older, although, like, someone who has meltdowns as an adult probably had more meltdowns as a kid.
Can you define what a meltdown is for our audience?
So a meltdown is when um, an autistic person has it's not the same thing as a tantrum. It's not like when it can look a lot like a neurotypical kid having a tantrum. But it's really that the autistic kid can't handle whatever is happening.
Yeah.
They're having a very hard time handling it. They're not just trying to get something, they're trying to deal with their strong feelings about something. It
So it's
can
like
be
a sensory overload in many
it can
ways.
be a sensory overload. It can definitely be a sensory overload. It can be when their routine gets changed for
Mm.
some reason. Um, with my son, if he's expecting something and I told him, hey, we're going to do this, or it's something that we do every day and we're not able to do it for some reason, he can get get really upset and have a very, very hard time with it. He'll often he will often want to, like, he doesn't know what to do to fix it, so he'll go between, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and they're two opposite things.
Yeah.
Um, and so in those cases, I used to just not know what to do and have a really hard time, and I would be going between the things
Oh
with him.
God.
And I learned, okay, I'm going to make a decision, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I typically know what is going to make you feel better
Yeah.
and what's going to help you get through this. And it's okay. We'll deal with it. Um, like if we go to eat, get drive through or something, and something he ordered isn't in the bag, I've learned, okay, we're going to go back and make them give it to us.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. We're driving back, even if we drove home and it's been a few blocks. We're going back. I'm not making you not get it. They messed up. You know,
Yeah.
um, or if they we'll go to a McDonald's, and if one of them doesn't have a chocolate milk or something, it's
Mm.
like, okay, I might decide, okay, they don't have it. We're just going to go to the other one and get your whole meal there. And then it'll be
Yeah.
warm. You'll have your chocolate milk, and he'll worry, well, what if they don't have it? No, let's go back to the other one. And it's like, no, we're just going here. And then once we get it, he's fine because I actually got it resolved.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
whatever, it's that uncertainty essentially.
yeah, it's that uncertainty, and he has a rough time with that.
Yeah. Dark Elf Twilight says, this is definitely something I've experienced parenting. The first autistic people I knew were adults with coping skills and tools.
Yeah, you
When
tend
I
to.
was parenting a couple of autistic kiddos, they had a much harder time regulating.
Yeah, that's yep.
Is that something that is familiar to you as
Yeah,
well?
and Clark has gotten better too. He's 15 now, so he still has some of those issues. He'll still get frustrated with things, but he's getting better and better at it. And another important thing too. Now we're talking about autism parenting, but you can have your characters do this. An important thing is to let them know when you're happy with something they did,
Mm.
or it's probably good for all kids, but it's like if he like when he was little and we were walking around and he's holding my hand, I'm that's a good job holding my hand. I like that. And just let him know what is making me happy. And then
Yeah.
he's more
Don't
likely to
don't
do it.
expect him to guess,
Don't
essentially.
expect him to guess or just get it, like a lot of neurotypical kids would just get the signs. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to talk a little bit about the challenges that characters might face because of their autism. Now, this is something we've touched on, but I think it's something that can be it's the other side of the superpowers, right? Like I
Yeah.
think it's great to talk about what people are great at, regardless of who those people are. But I think it's naive to pretend there are no challenges, I think it's important to talk about challenges. So
Yeah.
what kind of characters might what kind of challenges might autistic characters face, or what kind of challenges have your autistic characters faced?
Well, one thing I just thought of, Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy. I know that's how basically his whole species is autistic.
Okay.
So I'm like just not getting innuendo and not getting expressions and sarcasm and things like that. That's something that, I mean, a lot of autistic people do get those things, but a lot don't, or we have a harder time with it.
Yeah.
So, another good example, and I think they did a pretty good job on the show, on The Big Bang Theory. Everyone on that show has autism, except for Penny.
Interesting.
Pretty much all of those guys are autistic. So, I mean, it's like really the most obvious in Sheldon, but all of those guys are on the spectrum. All of them and their girlfriends or wives are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, yeah. The guy who works at the comic shop, his girlfriend, like, they are all autistic. So, yeah. So, I mean, and they do a pretty good job of it. So, yeah. Although like Leonard, he totally, and although the guys get sarcasm and stuff, Sheldon doesn't.
Yeah.
But they all still definitely have their special interests and are really focused on what they do for their careers. Those were special interests of theirs too. And so, yeah.
Amazing.
And they don't always get, there are times when, like, Leonard is having a tough time with, Penny's neurotypical friends, or when he there was an episode where he went to to see a football game at Penny's house when they were seeing each other, and and he was like analyzing the game more than they were and pointing out what was going wrong in the game more than the other people were. Yeah. Because he's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. So he just like learned a ton about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So challenges that you've mentioned there are
challenges are like, just having kind of a big one is just having a hard time getting people who are neurotypical.
Yeah.
And often seeing things that seem ridiculous that neurotypical people do, that your average Joe does. And just like, it doesn't, just doesn't make sense. Do
you have any examples of those from your own experience?
Oh, I hadn't thought of any, and I don't, but there was an episode of the show Arthur that had and it was kind of a little stereotypical, but not inaccurate, where one of the characters, it was kind of simplified for kids, where one of the kids made a friend with what they were calling then Asperger's.
Yeah.
And it's called Asperger's in the show, but they have a little segment where it talks about how the experience of a lot of autistic people is it's like we are from a different planet, and Earth is similar to our planet, but not just like it. And people do weird things here, like they'll dress weird and do things that don't necessarily make a lot of sense just because other people do them. There's another book that kind of goes into that too, called A Field Guide. I don't remember who wrote it, but look up A Field Guide to Earthlings, which is a book kind of for autistic people about understanding neurotypicals better. And it can help neurotypical people understand people with autism better too.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people with autism and who are generally neurodiverse, or in many different ways neurodiverse, often refer to themselves as robots or as aliens or as I always used to call myself a dinosaur in a human suit. Like, I would see all the humans humaning, and then I would put on my human suit so I could go off and human with the humans.
You're
but inside, exactly.
Yeah.
That a dinosaur in a human suit. I then learned the name for
Yeah.
this was masking. But yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
But this is something that's very common, that people feel that they are just sort of other,
That
as it
that
were.
actually reminds me of something else too. There's a common misconception that people with autism, um, especially those with the type that used to be called Asperger's, with that kind of array, um, don't have empathy.
Yes.
And it's just the opposite. People with autism often are more empathetic.
Yeah.
You just don't necessarily see it on our faces as much, but we tend to actually be more empathetic, and that can actually cause like a lot of anxiety and stuff. So
I was
yeah,
going to say social anxiety is something that is often cited because essentially, if you know you are not like others and you know
yeah,
there's things you might not be picking up on, you're very conscious of that. Imagine if everybody around you was, speaking two languages at the same time, but you only understood one of them.
right, yeah, yeah. There you go.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
think that definitely comes under the challenges that you
yeah,
face, and it's sort of it's a reaction to this knowledge that you are other and you're not picking up necessarily on everything that's going on.
yeah. Another is in sensitivity to stimuli. So
Mm,
um, it can be often hard for people with autism to shut out things. I mean, there's kind of as humans, we have, for the most part, this ability to focus and to shut most other things out.
yeah.
Even though we're actually getting all this input, most of it we're able to filter out. A lot of there are definitely times when I have a hard time filtering things out. Most of the time, I'm fine. But a lot of people with autism will have, people will have will really get overwhelmed. That's why you'll um, have kids like wearing sound dampening headphones. Might see a parent with a kid with sound dampening headphones
Yeah.
at Disneyland, or just out or in class. They'll be um, there's also sometimes a feeling that of being untethered.
Mm.
So one thing that helped Clark when he was littler was they would have a weighted vest for him at school, and it would help him feel more grounded.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And just this vest, and it's just like kind of, you know,
Mm.
one reason autistic people often like are drawn to water. So if there's when autistic people wander and uh and end up dead, which happens, yeah, it's sad, but most of the time it's not because they were hit by a car or something. Most of the time they drowned
Oh my goodness.
because they're attracted to water. There's a movie about a famous autistic person and autistic advocate. Her name's Temple Grandin.
Mm.
Totally recommend reading anything by her. The movie Temple Grandin is great. Claire Danes plays her in the movie and does a fantastic job. One of the things that she uh, kind of invents is a hugging machine. It's like a little thing that she gets into, and it just she feels like kind of pressed in, and
Amazing.
it's
Yeah.
and helps her kind of feel grounded. And that's kind of related to why a lot of autistic people like water, because
Okay, because it's
when you're
that
swimming,
pressure.
it feels like a hug. Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels the pressure, but not from a human, which you may
Yeah.
or may not always be into. But
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a friend who uses weighted blankets for the same reason. She's autistic.
yeah, so those are good. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
She finds them very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're good. Those are good things to definitely be aware of if you're writing autistic characters. But don't just listen to what I'm saying. Do a lot of research.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. A lot of people
understand the
here
character.
in the chat have been discussing their own experiences. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
sharing. I think there's so much value to that. And they're also they've been discussing things like the fact that they're in autistic groups, and there are spaces that you can read
Oh,
about other people's experiences that people share openly. Reddit is a very good one as well. So you can go to these spaces and read. Don't feel you need to tell people what they think if you're not autistic. Don't feel you need to do that, but it's a good space to go and listen and read, essentially.
Now
Um,
I have this list I put together of
ooh.
um, writing autistic characters guide.
Oh yeah.
I can put that on my blog later.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
So yeah, because I think that'd be useful to people. I'm going to revise it a little bit, but then I'll put it up on the blog.
Yeah.
So and that's on my website. I don't know what links are going out. Should I? Is there?
Your website link has gone out already. I can pop that
Okay,
out again.
good. Okay, jonathanfesmire.com. Yeah, and feel free to share my World Anvil too.
Yeah, that's gone out too.
I
Um,
have added on my World Anvil. Like I'm sure people understand that as a writer, most of my stuff is behind the scenes. There's so much stuff that's private on there, for my because it's my series Bible. But I did make a for readers section, and I'm putting kind of simplified character pages and things in there. And there's an appendix section that's got tons of stuff, just things about the world. Since it happens on Earth, takes place, but just an alternate Earth. I just have things about, just for my reference, about various cultures and languages and all kinds of things. So sometimes adapted if need be for my world, and sometimes not. But it's so there's that stuff too. But I think probably the most interesting stuff is under the characters. I think the for readers section.
Wonderful. I'd love to talk a little bit about common mistakes you see in the portrayal of autistic characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned already that a lot of people think autistic characters either they don't have emotions, or they don't show emotions, or they don't have empathy. This, of course, is not true.
The
Uh,
opposite. Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
the opposite. Are there other things that that you've spotted in portrayals, or in some of these misconceptions that make it into movies, or into series, or into books?
That's I haven't seen a ton of obviously autistic characters in
Yeah.
stories. Oddly enough, I think we need more representation. I
Yeah.
think we need more representation where it's like in my world, it's it's 1877, right? Where I'm writing right now. The last book actually ended in 1878, but I went back for this parallel series, and they didn't have a word for it then. So
Yeah.
so I can't say autistic. I can say that person's eccentric. That can be, that's kind of a code but word. And I can kind of show autistic traits, and then if people get it, they do. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
But what was the question again? A couple of mistakes in the
I actually put the questions at the bottom.
Yeah, it's right there. I'm like, oh, there it is.
I do this for a reason, because it helps us both stay on track.
Focus,
And it helps the audience as well. But yeah, so common mistakes.
I'm going on a couple little tangents here too.
That's okay.
Because it's reminding me of things. One big thing to remember is that if you know one autistic person, you know one autistic person.
Yeah.
Everybody who has autism is different, is a unique individual, and very often their symptoms, for lack of a better term, at the moment, or there'll be a different combination of what makes them tick. So I think for the most part, autistic people tend to be, in my, this is my opinion, this is not study, but because I think, but I do think because of the actually greater empathy, I think most autistic people tend to be more understanding and caring people, but there are douchebags. So
They walk among us.
yeah, one of them owns Twitter.
Oh.
So yeah, it's like, oh, dude,
I think one of the
quit blaming your autism, Elon. Quit, that's it's not that it's not because you're autistic, it's because you're kind of a jerk. So yeah.
I think one of the common mistakes people make whenever they're writing the other is they never move beyond that thing that makes them other. That becomes the whole character.
There you go. Yeah. And you have to remember that with any other, but yeah, we're talking about autistic people. You need to remember that you're talking about individuals, and they might be hyper focused on an interest, but that's their interest because
Yeah.
of who they are. It's part of what makes them who they are. There are people with feelings, they have relationships, including romantic relationships, friendships. Yeah, people.
Yeah.
One thing too is that there, and this is in my personal experience, people with autism can seem annoying if they're like really focused on something to neurotypicals, like when you like can't stop talking about something and you don't get that the people don't are tired of that topic.
Yeah.
So that can happen. I'd like to see more where that happens, but the people are kind of understanding and willing to say, can we talk about something else? I know that's an interesting topic to you, and mostly I find it interesting too, but I'm getting kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
As I think most autistic people will go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just thanks for
Absolutely.
telling me,
It's not malice. They just weren't picking up on it.
Yeah, I'm just not picking up on it. It's not malice. It's not, it's, yeah. And so,
in terms of common mistakes, Barry Saxe has raised a really good one, in my opinion, here,
great.
which is characters with autism who are fixed by the end of the story.
Oh, yeah.
That's a mistake, guys.
That's a big mistake. Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to be fixed. People with autism don't need to be fixed. You might, certainly they might want to be able to understand neurotypical people better, get along better, things like that. But that needs to happen in the context of them still being who they are and still being autistic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who doesn't want to want to make their life easier and learn more?
Yeah,
like who in the entire world does not want that? That is exactly what everybody wants. So you do not need to be fixed in order to, learn more stuff about how to interact with
we have character arcs, and a character changes by the end of a story. You might have multiple character arcs for different characters in a story, and different characters have changed and grown. But the autistic characters need to stay autistic. Do not fix the autism. Don't fix the autism itself. Help them understand better, things like that. Help them be able to show better that they do have empathy and that the other people just aren't seeing it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
But they still need to be who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for that one, Barry Saxe. That was very insightful.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
So that brings me to the audience questions, and we have a couple. Kayatan asks, do you think autistic people are more creative than neurotypicals?
I think autistic people tend to. I don't know. I want to say yes, but I don't want to tick off neurotypical people everywhere. Certainly I'm highly creative and I'm autistic. I think that one way that autistic people can tend to be able to really tap into their creativity is because they see things differently.
Mm.
And there's actually something else I thought of too. I was reading actually in a book on writing that mentioned this, but I went, well, autistic people often do that, called Question the Premise. Where any like question you get or premise you have, there's so many premises we just assume are true. And I think a lot of the time autistic people are more willing to go, well, is that true? And do I need to do that? Like I haven't had a girlfriend for a few years. I'm open to meeting somebody, but it seems like there's an idea that you've got to find somebody, you've got to be with somebody, and it's like, and it's just an assumption.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, do you? You know, it's isn't it okay to just do things on your own and
Yeah.
be, you
Be
know,
happy.
and be
Yeah.
happy? Can't you be happy on your own? You know,
Yeah.
it's like I have so many things that I do, mostly writing related, but I do other creative things too. And it's like if I was seeing somebody, um, I got to be seeing somebody who I can still do all that stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
it's not going to take away from,
Yeah.
you know, all these things that I find are important to me.
Yeah. I think
So,
one
yeah.
of the things you said there is very insightful, which is, question the
Question the
premise,
premise.
question why. Um, so as I mentioned, I have not been diagnosed with autism. I have some like suspicions, but I have not been diagnosed with autism. I have been diagnosed with dyslexia, and I'm somebody who's very often been on the outside of things. And I would say anybody whose experience is outside of the mainstream, who has felt like they are somehow on the outside looking in, whether that is because of class or I was going to
Yeah.
say species, but that's not what I mean. So I told you I'm a dinosaur and a
Feels like
human
it
suit.
though. Yeah.
Or language, or because you moved around a lot. This is something that gives us a perspective to ask why this premise? Because we've experienced many versions of whatever it is that's going on, or many different assumptions. So I think anything that puts us outside the mainstream gives us an interesting perspective, and that is very useful for creativity.
Yeah.
um so you can be neurotypical and very creative. Many people are, um but being brave enough to ask why something, I think, is something that sets you on the creative road.
Yeah.
Sailing Ocelot asks, how do you write about the negative sides of autism, such as meltdowns, with respect to the neurodiverse community? How can you navigate your own expertise in a subject that has such variety, like a whole non-linear spectrum,
Yeah. Yeah.
where one experience might be X, but other experiences are Z or Y, for example?
Um, I would say understand what's at the uh why, like if you know, I kind of like if the autistic person is what we might think of as behaving badly. Um, I don't know, you know, this is like a weird analogy because I don't, but think of like we do that with villains, right?
Yeah.
Why is he doing this? And you know, not saying that the autistic character, you could have an autistic character who's a villain, but of course, but not saying that having a meltdown is a villainous thing. It is absolutely not. But it's just like with a villain or any character, understand what's going on in the person's head,
Mm.
in their experience, that is causing the meltdown. So be honest about it. You know, of course you can have a character seeing the meltdown and that character thinks badly of it,
Yeah.
but that's that character, not the author. As the author, be, you know, have some compassion and honesty
Yeah.
for what's going on. Yeah,
I
that's
think, again, going back to
the
the
question.
general mistakes people make when portraying the other, whatever that means. One of the problems that is often seen and could be seen here as well is there's only one. There is only one autistic person in the entire of your world, which
Oh
means
yeah,
whatever you write about them defines what that is in your whole setting. But as Jonathan said at the beginning, there's a lot of neurodiverse people in the world and they have different experiences. So showing different expressions of, for example, autism in this case, is a great way to present respectfully, hey, look, there's a bunch of characters here and they all behave differently, and they are all like, there are some
yeah.
things that are common and there are some things that are not common between them, and their experiences are unique.
And the thing of that too, I'm realizing there's at least one other character, a side character I hadn't thought of, who is probably autistic. I just kind of portrayed
Mm.
him with certain traits, and I didn't really think too much about it. But um, have different characters with different combinations of traits. A lot of people, a lot of autistic people can partly through masking and partly just depending on their particular array in the spectrum, can seem very neurotypical. My last therapist, who, man, I'd like to be able to see her again, but she got extra busy, but which is okay. But she actually pointed out when I first started seeing her years ago that if I hadn't told her I was autistic, she wouldn't have seen it. But I know she started to see it later. She started to, and I'm like, yeah, people who know me tend to see and understand my autistic traits. When I was a kid, it should have been obvious, but they weren't diagnosing it at that time. They didn't know what it was. And I know that there were teachers who were kind of trying to figure me out and stuff. My parents were trying to figure me out too. And they finally went, oh, like when I was in my 40s. But I don't know where exactly I was going with that besides there. So.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. Well, Jonathan, can you please tell me what's next for you? What are you working on now?
Okay, so I've got the trilogy out, the Adventures of Bodacious Creed, which are about this undead lawman who it takes place in between Santa Cruz and San Francisco.
Yeah.
The series does. I'm from Santa Cruz, California. I've spent enough time in San Francisco and did a lot of research on it, and deals with a lot of the San Francisco ones deal with a lot of what was going on, things that were going on in that area. So there's a lot of character diversity. There are a lot of Chinese characters and characters of different races. Sometimes we think about the Old West and see just white people, and it really wasn't. So you got to be, it's probably mostly, but you got to be, definitely have that diversity, and it just feels better when you do that to me. But anyway, so those are kind of an adventure series, and some mystery, and they wrap up with the third book, but there's hints in those books about what's going on with his daughter, who's one of the main characters, but she's also now the main character of her own series, and that's the series I'm writing right now. And some of what's going on with her is going to be in newspapers, because she's kind of a really influential figure in the world. So the series is going to be called the Anna Lynn Chronicles.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm writing the first book right now, Anna, Daughter of Creed. And,
amazing.
Yeah.
And congratulations to Half Century Dad. Half a Century Dad, are you here? Please say something to claim your prize. You have won book number 1 of the Bodacious Creed series. I have it. I cannot wait to start it. The minute Jonathan said steampunk, Western, zombies, I was like, and I'm there. So, Half Century Dad, one more time, please say something to claim your prize, or I will have to pull another winner from the raffle. Please say something. In the meantime, I would like to remind you all that summer camp homework starts tomorrow.
Serious? Yay.
Yeah, Half a Century Dad says, I'm here. That's amazing. Please send me an email at hello@worldanvil.com. That's hello@worldanvil.com. And I will arrange for you to get your prize. Alrighty then. Lots of thank yous for addressing autism. I think it's really important to do these kinds of live streams, to talk about these kinds of things. It's important to see, as Jonathan said, more autistic characters. And how can you do that if we do not give you the tools to do that? So that's what we're trying to do, guys. If you have other requests for these kinds of streams where we talk about, again, writing the other in inverted commas, then please let me know. Please request things from me. You can find me over on Twitter. You can find me over on Discord. And I'll try and set those up for you, because I think we need more amazing, diverse people in our books. That's what I think.
For sure. Yeah. I agree.
So yeah, keep the requests coming. I think we should go on a raid. What do you think? Let's see who is live right now. Lord. So yeah,
Oh.
tomorrow we are going to be talking about summer camp. So make sure you tune in to learn the theme of the week 1 prompts, which I will be revealing. I will be sharing my thoughts on that as well. And ECC Books will be here too, talking about how they are going to be using the theme and doing summer camp in their world. We will not be revealing the prompts, but there may be hints. There may be hints. Barry Saxey says, could you do one on dyslexia? Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I will go find somebody who I think would be great to talk about that. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. All right, guys, we are going on a raid. I'm writing it in the wrong place. Good Lord.
How do we do our raid?
So we write raid, and then I remember what the channel is called. Law hammering. Yeah. So we are going to raid Andy Law and the Law Hammer channel. So stick around and shout out Light Up the Forge when you get there to let him know that we sent you, fellow neurodiverse warrior, and also an Avalite too. So yeah, go check out his stream. They are doing live fantasy Warhammer roleplay. And Jonathan, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, I was really glad to. Yeah, and it was awesome meeting you and Demetris.
Yeah, we got to meet each other in person. That was amazing.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was really great.
All right, folks, you see what can happen if you come to a World Anvil Live meetup, guys. You see what can happen. Yeah, you meet awesome people. All right, my beans, I will see you all tomorrow for our summer camp live stream. Go find Jonathan on the internet and grab your hammer and go world build. See you soon.